Rachel, hello.
Hello.
Welcome. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm so excited to chat to you and find out all about your directing career thus far, and of course Deadly Cuts and all of that. So yeah, thank you.
No, not at all. Thanks for having me. It's great.
Do you have a drink with you?
I do. I have a vodka and lemon.
Nice. Is that your go-to vibe?
It depends. I'm finding with lockdown, I'm kind of like mixing it up a lot more than I used to because I'm doing stuff at home and you're trying to keep it novel.
Yeah.
And find, different ways. So it doesn't even have like a slice of lemon or anything in it, but yeah, it's good. It's kind of sunny, so it's a bit of a
good
perky drink, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I've got a G&T, which also right now it just literally looks like water, and I left the ice out, which also for me is not as great, but it's a sunny day. So cheers.
Cheers.
Right, let's hop into it. I'm so excited to just chat to you. I read that you had a long career in advertising. Yeah, and then transitioned into film now. So what was that transition like, and what was the motivation behind that?
So first of all, I'd say I still haven't fully left advertising, really. I still have one foot in it.
Okay.
And I go back and I freelance in advertising
cool.
quite a bit, which I actually really love. So I started out in advertising. Like I was always into writing and drama, and I did a bit of acting and stuff when I was younger, but mostly sort of, amateur theatre and things like that, local theatre. Then I sort of stumbled into advertising and became a copywriter. And suddenly you're kind of writing ads and you're on productions and you're shooting ads and you're introduced, like the world's completely crossover, and you're suddenly introduced to that world of screen and what it's like to produce something on a screen. You're working with great directors. So very quickly I was like, oh, this is what I want to do,
Awesome.
And it was really just such a brilliant training ground. Like it really is, like because you're just constantly coming up with ideas, you get used to how to pitch ideas, all sorts of different production styles, all the elements involved, you're involved the whole way when you work in advertising. So I started, while I was in ads, I started writing some of my own stuff on the side, a lot of kind of sketches, little shorts and things like that. And I go out and kind of shoot them myself. And then eventually I kind of started applying for funding, and trying to get more serious about it. And I got my first short that I wrote and directed made with the Irish Film Board here. And from then I'd been developing a couple of features, and I knew I kind of wanted to very quickly move on to that. And it was when Deadly Cuts kind of got noticed and optioned that I finally left advertising full time. Okay. And crossed over into that's a very long-winded.
No, it's really interesting because everyone has a different way into film. Everyone's got a different story, and it's quite fascinating how some people just find their way maybe a little later on or through other avenues. So it's always interesting to hear.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't go to film school or anything like that. Like I'd always do courses and stuff part-time on screenwriting and things like that, which I think all stand to you. Like they're all great to do. But yeah, it was definitely a bit of a zigzaggy road in for me.
Tell me about Deadly Cuts. It's a dark comedy. I love a dark comedy. You've got such an amazing cast. It looked like it was, I can imagine it must have been an absolute ball shooting that film. Just watching it, I found myself just laughing throughout the entire film. So yeah, tell me a little bit about it, and where did it come from? How did you, everything.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I could talk all day about it, but I won't. So I guess I'll start with kind of where it came from. I always wanted to do, I don't know if you've ever been to Dublin, no?
I haven't, not yet. It's on my list.
I always wanted to do a film, the kind of young women in working class Dublin are so funny, and it's such a funny world, and a dialogue, and a kind of a certain kind of wit that goes on in that world. that I'd never seen on screen before in comedy, really, at all. Like, not in years. Like, there's great Irish comedies made, but I'd never seen something kind of showcasing that voice. So for a long time, I've been like, this is an open goal. Immediately, like, why is nobody doing this? I really, really want to do this. So I had that in the back of my mind. And then at the hairdressers, I go to like little salons a lot to get my hair blow dried, and I can't, like, it wasn't like there was one sort of eureka moment, but over time I started to kind of go, okay, well, this is the world where you tend to get this voice flying a lot.
Yeah,
this is perfect, their natural habitat, you know. And then I knew I wanted it to be about, I didn't want to make a comedy that was just like girls, you know. I kind of wanted to make it about, have something to say, I guess. So I kind of looked at what was going on in Dublin at the time, and in a lot of working class areas, and that's when I introduced this sort of element of vigilantism and the social issues, and that's sort of where it all came from, I guess. And then that was Deadly Cuts was born, and I was really lucky in that I actually pitched that at a pitching contest at a film festival over here, and it got, the producers were in the room, and it was a very early kind of half thought out version of it that I pitched, but they picked it up pretty much straight away. And I was lucky that that process just kind of really unfolded very fast. Like, a lot of people kind of said yes to it, and a lot of people got on board, and we were able to kind of move relatively quickly into getting it written and getting it produced. But you're right in that there was a lot of laughter on set. It was hilarious. It was just such great people. It was hard, like, it was a tough shoot, but a day didn't go by that we weren't crying, laughing at some point. And I think it really translates, which is
100%. Yeah.
So, yeah, a lot of fun.
I'd just love to go back and sort of ask you about the process, because I was going to ask you, you know, as a director, what is the process from the time that you receive a script to sort of getting it into fruition? But I'd love to know from a pitching standpoint, just on like maybe a high level, because I know it's quite a process and there's a lot involved. But for anyone who doesn't know and who maybe has an idea and maybe wants to pitch it, how does one even go about doing that? Where does one begin? What is that process like?
There's probably 1,000 answers to that question. Like, I think there's a lot of different ways in. The way I did it specifically, there was like a pitching competition that takes place every year at the Galway Film Festival that I entered a one-pager for.
Got it.
And I had to stand in front of a room and actually pitch it. But I'd say, however, so the challenge is getting in front of people, you know, whether that's a production company or some sort of funding body or a conversation at a festival or at a premiere, you know, like somewhere where you rub shoulders and you can tell somebody about your film. The same things apply. I think you have to have something written down, whether it's like one page that outlines your idea from start to finish and shows you actually have more than, because a lot of people will kind of go, I've got an idea for a film. It's about this jockey that did a blah. And you're like, okay, go on. And that's all they have, you know?
Yeah.
And there's a huge leap between a good idea and something that's potential to be a feature screenplay or series or whatever. So I think, yeah, and then really what it's about is being able to tell people about that in a compelling way and get across your excitement for it. Like, it really is, your energy is half the sell, it really is. And so, yeah, that's really what I'd say to people. Any opportunity they can get to practice, even just if friends ask them, oh, okay, what's your film about? You should be able to sit there and in a minute get somebody going, oh yeah, that sounds really, I'd watch that, you know? So that's what I'd say you need to have. And then it's about getting the right meeting or getting in front of someone to try and sell it.
Doing the networking and having that elevator pitch ready.
Yeah. It's a cliche, but it's so true.
Yeah, with confidence. I can imagine you need to be able to sell, basically. You're selling it.
I think so.
Yeah.
Like, I can only base it on myself, but you do, you know, it makes sense. You have to, if you're kind of dragging it out and don't sound excited, especially if you're coming out of nowhere, you're not an established writer or a director. If you're like some crazy famous or well-established writer and you mumble a pitch, people are going to buy it anyway.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah.
Totally, yeah. But you have to kind of sell.
What lessons did you learn on Deadly Cuts as a director that you are going to take forward to other projects?
Oh, like so many. It was such a learning curve because it was such a huge film to do as my first, because it had everything. Like, it had a huge cast, it had stunts, it had big set pieces. So there was a lot of kind of learning on the job, which I loved. I think probably as a director, what I would do differently, I probably prepare more. Like, it depends on who you are and what you're like, and you know, I would prepare, but I like to kind of wing it on the day a great deal. So there'd be sections that I'd be like, well, we'll see what happens with that, and then everything would be so busy and wouldn't get the time that you think you're going to get to think about where he's going to throw his hat or whatever, and the time just evaporates on the day. So I think, for me, I think you can't over prepare in terms of having thought every single thing through, and then you're free to adapt and respond to whatever's going on in the day. But that would probably be for me what I would do. Less swinging. Less
swinging, prepare more. What do you like with your actors on set as a director? How do you get the best, most truthful performances out of them?
So I think, you know, obviously it starts in the casting. That kind of goes without saying. You know, as an actor, I guess, when you meet with directors, what we're looking for is somebody we can work with, somebody we can connect with. And then once that's there, you know, you can use that then on the day. And you get a feel for someone's personality, I think, as well, a little bit. Like, are you going to click? And there's no point in having someone who you just can't understand one another. So definitely it started in casting and kind of getting a feel for, and just making sure they were the right people for the job, which they absolutely were. I mean, I was so lucky in that the cast were brilliant, and they were so up for it and tireless. You know, I think probably as a first-time director, you know, nervousness would make you kind of push people a little bit more and do occasionally, like, do maybe more takes than you might necessarily need. So they were patient with me in that way, but I think it was because we had a good relationship, and I kind of let them do their thing. I think especially with comedy, the chemistry formed between the girls and with Angeline Ball, and a lot of it was about kind of trusting them, especially at first, letting them find their feet within a scene, you know, letting them have their input, whether it was an ad-lib, whether it was a problem they had with a line, you know, trusting them as actors as will make them trust you as a director. So I think that's how we got to a point, and which grew over the weeks of the shoot. We got to a point where it was just, you know, we were kind of there for each other, I think. And it was that kind of a relationship. Everybody just wanted to get the best, and they really wanted to get what I wanted. And I wanted them to be happy. And then it just turns into something quite relaxed, I think. And it just translates into the performance. Like, there's no point anyone being stressed or hassled or overthinking.
Blocks you.
Totally. Exactly. Even if it is a criticism, there's a way of talking to your actors about it, I think. And again, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I can't imagine how, you know, you hear stories, maybe it's old school now, of like directors just shouting at actors or getting really frustrated with them. You're like, how is someone supposed to perform?
Yeah, because the nerves, the nerves spike. It's a weird thing when you get too nervous. It completely blocks you. It does. But for anyone, I guess, anyone who's a creative, it stifles the creativity, because you're not able to just flow and be and play, which is what we're all doing, right? We're all working towards something by playing and creating. I've been doing a bit of reading on Sid Field's How to Write a Screenplay, because I've been dabbling in writing as well. And he talks a lot about structure, how important structure is, 3-act structure, developing characters, your plot points, all of that kind of stuff. So in terms of being a writer, what is your process like? Do you create such a big backstory for characters and then start writing, or is there a particular way in which you do it that I guess you come out with the final screenplay?
On Deadly Cuts, probably Deadly Cuts, I really, and maybe a lot of kind of first time feature writers do this, I really just poured it out at first, and then went back and did the heavy lifting, which is one way of doing it. It was just, it was one of those, I think it maybe happens with comedy, it was one of those ideas that was just so fun to actually just write it. And then what happened was I had plenty of laughs, but I had no heart, and I had no, so you realize that stage, like I'm writing another feature now, and I'm really hesitant to even get out of the blocks until I have completely mapped out my principal character. Now, I think there's a balance, because I think you discover who they are as you write as well.
Yeah.
But definitely I would say, I mean, the structure thing and the 3-act and the 8 sequences, there's so much theory. I found it a lot. And there's a great podcast called Script Notes with Craig Mazin and John August. I'd really recommend that. And they're always like, they're really big Hollywood screenwriters, and they're very much like structure schmucture, the story. So advice I got at one point about that was, you're always going to have a beginning, middle, and an end. Use the structural stuff and the theory when you're stuck. Get it should help you rather than stifle you, because we can all go down that road of like, oh, I'm on page 45, I should be at a turning point where it doesn't feel natural or whatever. But I'm telling you, it just, that's the way the story will fall out in the end anyway, roughly. So I would say the character work, 100%. You have to do that graft. You have to, that's what people will connect to. That's what's going to drive your whole story. So I do think there's a lot to be said for doing a lot of that work up front, and kind of then beating it out a little bit in terms of knowing roughly where you're going. But then I think you just have to set off and just see where it goes, certainly for the first draft anyway.
What are some personal attributes that make a good filmmaker, and how do you personally foster them?
I think you definitely have to be a people person. I think you have to, maybe not all filmmakers are, but I think it's, this whole game is work, it's collaboration. Like it really is, from your cast to your DP, like having just good relationships where you can talk and communicate with everybody involved, from the financiers to the makeup assistant. You have to be able to do that, because you have to be able to communicate your vision and to other people, like every step of the way. So I think genuinely having decent communication skills and then genuinely enjoying working with other people is definitely helps, because unless you're an animator, I don't know, whatever, with other people then. So I definitely think that's an aspect I enjoy. I love working with other people. I love collaborating. So there's that for sure. And then I think you have to be, I don't know, like I find I'm a bit of a perfectionist. Now I don't think Deadly Cuts is perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it helps. I think you have to really, it's a tough industry to get into, and it's tough to get your stuff made, especially at first. So I think you have to have that drive in you to make your stuff really good and get knocked back and come back and know it has to be better, has to be better, has to be better. So I think I'm probably naturally like that, almost to a fault. And I think a lot of people in this industry are, actors a lot as well.
You
kind of rag on yourselves a lot until
big time.
There's a balance, I guess, between destroying yourself. But I think it's no harm to have that drive in you to always go, okay, how could this be better? Because you have to just push and push and push when you're actually getting something made to get what you want onto the screen, especially if it's like we'd hardly any budget and stuff. Really be able to kind of follow through that passion. That's two.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. That's enough. Being a female filmmaker in the industry, is that a big deal to you? Is it important to be known as a female filmmaker or just a filmmaker?
Probably a bit of both. Like, I think I've kind of hit the industry at a really good time. I've been lucky. I think a lot of people have done the heavy lifting before me and kind of got the industry to a place where it's so open to female filmmakers and women's stories, I think, in
yes.
a female perspective. It sells, you know, it's commercial sense. So I think I'm lucky in that I've never felt any resistance based on the fact that I'm not a man. I've found the industry, you know, really welcoming, and so, you know, I'd like to tell women's stories well, I guess is what I'd say, rather than it being about me being a woman. Like, I think if I can bring more female perspectives to the screen, I think it's fun, and it's, you know, we need that. We need as many voices as possible on the screen. And also, I guess, for me, kind of trying to break into this industry, there aren't a huge amount of people you can see and go, oh, there's that great comedy director who happens to be a woman and she's married with 2 kids or whatever. I think you miss that a little bit. There's some, of course, but there isn't a huge amount. But I think there's going to be more and more, and there's more and more young female filmmakers coming up. So if in any way I can be kind of, there's no word I can find here that doesn't make me sound like a wanker, but if people can look and go, well, she's a female filmmaker and she makes these kind of comedies, or, you know, she's had X success, so I can do it too. I think that's really important, the visibility aspect of it.
What do you want audiences to take away from Deadly Cuts?
What do I want them to take away? I mean, first and foremost, I just want them to have a good time. I think, you know, I really genuinely, and especially now, I think, what are you making a comedy for if you don't want to just give people some joy and make them laugh? I think if I want them to come away with anything, it's maybe to kind of reconsider young women from a working class background and how we maybe stereotype certain areas and certain backdrops. And I don't think that's just in Dublin. I think that's the whole Western world, you know, to, you know, hairdressers, and they're from this background, so they are X, you know. So maybe it kind of makes people kind of go, actually, they could be really smart and they could be struggling against things I don't know about. And it's a very lofty way of putting it, but yeah, on some level, first of all, laugh, but underneath somewhere that it sinks in, that it's like, oh, this is cool, this is a world I don't know enough about, and these are really funny, and I hope to see more of them.
I mean, I don't know that world at all, so for me I felt completely transported into just some other place that was completely new, and these characters just so unusual, you know. Especially me coming from South Africa, it's like so far to anything that I know. So that's where I found the comedy, you know, because it was like, what is happening? What is this? That's why I found it so funny. It was just, it's just really also quite intriguing, these different characters and how they live and how they talk, and how they interact. And
that's what I love in films. Like, that's what I love when I do a comedy that's from somewhere I'm not familiar with. I love getting immersed into that world. And, you know, even Strictly Ballroom is such a great reference, you know, and that Australian ballroom dancing world. It's like, what? Who are these people? You know,
exactly.
And it's crazy, and it's so fun, and it's how we find out about each other and the world, you know. So
and learning about different cultures too, you know.
Exactly. Yeah, we're not just seeing the same sort of middle class angsty stories, you know?
Yeah, it's fresh, very fresh. What is the best piece of advice that you have been given that has impacted you in some way, whether it's in your career or just life in general?
Oh, there's loads. There's actually a director here had a chat with me at one point when I was kind of like maybe 4 drafts into the script, and I'd hit a point where I just wanted to just throw it away. Like I didn't want to. I knew it wasn't right, but I didn't know how to fix it. And I remember saying to him, you know, how do I get this to the next draft? I don't know what's wrong, but I know it's not right. It was whiny, really, was what it was like. And he said to me, you have to lean into the pain. And what he meant by that was, when you're rereading your work, there's bits of it that make you want to get sick. Your gut reactions. You probably know if you've started writing, you reread and there's bits of it you're like, yeah. And then you get to bits and you don't want to, you just like want to move past those pages. You have to go back and go into those pages and say, why does this feel wrong? And it's horrible, it's uncomfortable, and we don't want to do it. It's amazing how much we avoid difficult work. And so you lean into it, and the more you do that, and then it will come to you, oh, well, it's wrong because it's not funny, or it's wrong because she would never say that, or this would never happen. And then that forces you to overcome the kind of laziness and the avoidance, I think, that a lot of us are guilty of. And you go in and then you sort it out. So lean into the pain, I think, is what I'd...
Lean into the pain. I love that. Yeah, I love that. I love that. If you could break the ice, meaning have a drink with anyone past or present, who would it be and why? I'm going to have to give like I should say somebody really sort of profound and intellectual, but I'm going to say Mariah Carey, because I've always loved her since I was a kid. We share a surname. I used to tell people in Dublin that we were related. Like, to the point it was kind of psychotic. People. And I have 3 older sisters. They all hated Mariah Carey, and I would play her music constantly and annoy them. And it's kind of a running joke in our family now. And I read she released a book recently, her life story. It's actually a brilliant read, and really okay. I just think she's really embraced who she is now, and I just think she's so funny on Instagram, and like so quick, and the story she has, I just think it would be a wild time to sit down and have a few glasses of wine, a few bottles. Yeah, I don't follow her on Instagram. I should though. Check her out. Yeah. Rachel, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for your time and just for being so open and willing to share. And
thank you so much. No, it's been an absolute pleasure. I've really enjoyed chatting. So thank you so much.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more inspirational videos just like this, then don't forget to subscribe, which you can do by clicking right over here. Also, leave us a comment in the section below and tell us who you guys would like us to break the ice with next.